This show is sponsored by Mighty Capital, the go-to venture capital firm for product-first companies like Airbnb and Amplitude. Learn why they are dubbed the best value for the dollar invested at mighty.capital. I'm SC Moatti, founder and chair of Products That Count, a 501c3 nonprofit engaging over 500,000 product managers. Our mission is simple: help you build great products through groundbreaking research, prestigious awards, and top-notch programming like this award-winning Top 1% podcast. Whether you're aiming to boost your career or turn your product team into a competitive advantage, this is your gateway. Visit productsthatcount.org and begin your product leadership journey. This particular series is hosted by one of the first chief product officers in the world, Renee and Niemi, and each episode is a masterclass in product leadership. Renee, over to you.
Thanks, SC. Absolutely thrilled to be here. I promise our listeners deep, meaningful conversations with every winner of the CPO awards and about their challenges and victories. From managing complex portfolios to leading digital transformations, I hope you gain as much insight from them as I have. Now let's get started.
Renee, you and I have been building this CPO thought leadership program for 3 going on 4 years now. So I'm dying to hear, what's the number one finding for this year, 2024?
You know, I am really excited to be sharing this with you. Our whole vision of this program was to be able to track the rise of the most important role in the C-suite. And I'm really fascinated by all of the challenges from year to year that has gone on. If you think about, we started this right as we were in the pandemic, and we were going through those big digital transformations. And then the second year was all about an uncertain economic times. How do you navigate them? This year is all about the opportunities of AI. And every single one of these steps in this journey has really accelerated that role of the chief product officer. So what is really interesting is that this year we have seen evidence, like hard data and evidence, that the role of the CPO is the most important role in the C-suite. In fact, this year, 20% of last year's winners have been appointed president roles or higher. In fact, we had a couple that were appointed CEO. So it just shows you the impact of the role of the chief product officer. And I will tell you, this year's winner, already 10% of them have the role of this title of president. And it just shows you the impact that they're having. And we're seeing even more impact with the advent of AI.
That's amazing. Such a fast rise, right? Because when you and I started tracking the title of chief product officers, I mean, they were exceptional people like you who had the title for, a number of years. But really, we only had 3% of Fortune 1000 with a CPO in the C-suite. Then it jumped to 30, and now they're moving to president at the rate of 20% a year. It's unbelievable. I love it.
It really is. And again, it's just what I love about it. We're engineers at heart, and we like to see the data to back what we knew to be true. So that was probably the number one piece of research that came back this year that just excited me. I'd love to kind of, flip the conversation, SC. Obviously, you've reviewed the research and have been in the middle of it. What surprised you the most?
Yes, for me, there's a couple of things that I found really exciting this year. The first thing is the race to be in the top job, right, in the CEO seat is on. And we've seen that a long time ago. That's why we're in product. That's part of what we believe is making CPO a product the most important function in business. But what I'm seeing now is that companies that have a product first culture, or companies that appoint a chief product officer in the C-suite or promote a chief product officer to president, they actually outperform other companies in their categories. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One is from Mighty Capital, my venture firm, and we work on this together. When you look at the companies that we invest in, that's our DNA. We invest in product first companies. Well, traditionally, old style venture capital, the success is defined by the power law. You're going to have one home run in maybe 20 investments, and the rest is going to do kind of what it's going to do, but most likely not much. Well, in our portfolio, we see that we're actually defying the power law with 1 in only 5 companies becoming a home run. So that's like 4 times better than the average company. So we see that at the very early stage, at the Series A, emerging, most innovative, which is where product is, critical. We also see it in the growth stage with a company like Wind River, which is a phenomenal company. One of my fellow board members at Products That Count is running Wind River, and you and I know him. The success of Wind River has been phenomenal. And the reason is they were owned by a very large, phenomenal PE firm, TPG. And so they went through the traditional playbook for outperforming others, which is you get operational efficiencies, you do a couple of M&As so you can increase, the like roll up, increase the price point. But what they did is they added to that a product first strategy, which means they repositioned the company. They targeted a higher level product buyer. They also changed the business model, right? So they did a lot of really smart product improvements, and that allowed them to outperform their competitors by more than 3 times. So there's really clearly at these early stages outperformance. In the public market, we'd have to look at the data. I think that would be actually a really fun exercise to do to see if we actually see outperformance in the Fortune 1000. But I can already see that in the Mighty Capital portfolio. So that's the first thing. The second surprise is last year, you and I, we anticipated there was going to be a lot of M&A. In other words, product is now a strategic function that is more and more grabbing the M&A agenda. And the rationale for that is they are not getting most of the value from an M&A when it's driven by finance, who says, here, find some product synergies, but the product teams themselves don't work together. So the synergies are more like bundling rather than true product and roadmap synergies. And so we said that's going to change. Well, I was surprised to see that it hasn't changed as fast as I anticipated. And so it could be that it's the promotion to president is the gateway to more M&A. I'm going to make that same prediction this year. There's going to be more M&A because product is becoming more and more important in the C-suite. And the other thing is, and maybe that explains why M&A took a bit of a backseat, CPOs have had their roadmap filled up with AI, right? Driving productivity with AI. And so it could be that AI led to M&A being in the backseat. We'll have to see. So those are kind of my key takeaways. But now talking about AI, you had a whole deep dive on the innovation agenda for CPOs and had some really exciting takeaways there. We'd love to hear more from you on this.
Yes, this last year, we didn't think there could be any more tailwinds to the role of the chief product officer than the pandemic, where everybody was, forced to transform their businesses to digital or, frankly, be rendered irrelevant. But this year, with the advent, we're going to call it, of ChatGPT and this rise in the awareness of the role of AI, the chief product officer is not only leading the efforts in product, but they're also leading the efforts across the company. And what we have seen is it's really a multi-phase approach. And and I'll talk about the impact in a minute. But the first phase is, what can we do now to make our companies operate better? Kind of the master point that you were just making in terms of efficiency. But how do we actually use what's in the market? What tools can we use to make things better? And the surprise here is, you would have thought that each functional area would have been responsible. So sales would be responsible for sales ops and support, and the marketing would be responsible for how could we make our marketing efforts more sufficient or more efficient. That is not what we're seeing at all. What we're seeing is that the CPO is at the center of all of these decisions, in both the evaluation of where the highest impact is and the acceleration of seeing that impact. Some of the areas, some examples of this are particularly relevant and prevalent in customer support, where you can very quickly use AI to augment the efforts that the support team's doing to A, improve customer experience, and B, reduce the need that as you grow, you do not have to grow your support team exponentially. Clearly, in terms of self-serve tools, AI is playing a much bigger role. So what actually gets to the support agent is fewer. And we've seen really big adoption in customer support. The other short-term adoptions that we're seeing that the CPOs have really identified is just in the efficiency of writing, frankly. And we see that obviously in marketing, in terms of things like customer white papers and things that will help support the customer journey. But you're also seeing this in terms of making product managers more efficient. So, sadly, product managers spend a lot of time writing, documenting, and a lot of that time has now been reduced. And so they can spend more of their time in areas that matter, including being in front of more customers, real time. So there's that short term. We're already seeing efficiencies. I talked to a couple chief product officers in this research that actually said that, frankly, they're seeing updates as much as 30% improvement. Another data point that's worth noting is there's a trend on budgeting where we're seeing an increase of budget for tools in the short term, specifically to aid efficiency, AI-enabled tools, and really holding headcount flat. So that's the short term. I think on the long term, there's a need, and you already mentioned it. Their entire roadmaps have been completely flipped upside down, and they are reimagining every element of the roadmap. But the best chief product officers are not losing the fundamentals, right? At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is they are trying to improve customer outcomes. In the next 2 or 3 years, they'll be able to get to those outcomes and more enriched ways using AI. And then in the longer term, they're going to be absolutely reimagining what it wasn't even possible today using AI. And we're seeing this in every area, from how customers, the user experience, how customers interact with products, to how products can actually predict and be easier to use for users because they can be a lot more predictive in nature. So more to come on the longer term, but they're really isolating both of them. One more point that I'd really like to bring out on this that has really, I think, contributed to the elevation of the role of the chief product officer now to the board level conversation. They're no longer just at the C-suite, they're now at the board level, because there really isn't a public or private company out there that over this past year hasn't needed to have a credible story around AI and how they're going to use AI. And by the way, the story goes all the way to the investor level. The investors want to know that they're investing in companies that are looking to leverage AI tools in both the short term and the long term to stay competitive. And if they don't have that story, then the value of the companies actually come down. And so what this has done is elevated the conversation between the chief product officer, not just across the company, not just across the C-suite, but has elevated, the conversations all the way to the board level. So it's just really been a transformational year.
Amazing. Renee, it's been fun to watch this, but I want to say you and I have a little bit of a part that we played in this, because I found that sometimes our prediction, we kind of set the direction where we wanted to go. And then because we have so many connections with chief product officers and we understand them, we know their goals, we know what's going to make their companies successful, then our prediction becomes a reality. So we're, a little bit of like influencing the crystal ball. And I love that part. And would love to do this again with you this year. So maybe we can review our predictions and make some new ones. What do you think?
I love it. Yes, yes. And I just want to underscore that our predictions are fundamentally based on what we're seeing. I'm just going to emphasize that I literally talk to about 10 chief product officers a week. So these are rich predictions, rich with real conversations. So, okay, where do we want to go first, SC?
Okay, so last year, I'm going to go back a year. Things move fast in the world of products. So we predicted that there would be an increase in business ownership. At the time, we said about a third of chief product officers have P&L ownership. So drum roll, where are we at today?
We have seen an increase up to 50%. And that is actually what came back in our survey data this year. And what's driving this is pretty obvious. Is the fact that they are impacting so many elements of the business that they're being measured against their business impact versus just traditional product metrics. But yeah, 50% of those surveys this year have business P&L ownership.
Amazing. And so if you are a CPO today and you don't have P&L ownership, like take this podcast, take all of our CPO reports, bring that to your top leadership, your CEO, say, I need P&L ownership. Otherwise, we're in the bottom 50% of companies, right? In terms of performance, in terms of ability to innovate and deliver. So I'm betting this number is going to rise up again next year.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. This number is not going flat or down anytime soon.
So if I go back 2 years ago, we had predicted that 70% of Fortune 1000 would have a chief product officer by 2027. And last year we said it's going even faster. I'm going to say we're staying the course here, and maybe we can just say like, story to be continued. But the one point that I want to dive a little bit deeper on is what we touched on earlier in this conversation, which is M&A, right? So M&A took a back seat because of AI being such a massive priority on chief product officers' roadmap. Now, what are we predicting for this coming year? What do you see, Renee?
I'm predicting it's going to be on the rise for this year, and what's going to be driving it is AI. I want to take a step back about the topic of M&A because there's multiple things at play here. First, traditionally, there's been a corporate strategy office that handles M&A, which sits under the finance function. And when they see something interesting, they'll pull in, all the relevant parties, whether it be, product, marketing, sales, whatever. This is how it used to work. The best companies are the ones that are growing the fastest. There's at least at a minimum a strategic agenda that is set by a proactive strategic agenda that was set by the chief product officer. And that's what we identified last year, that we're starting to see that strategic agenda be set, still supported by the corporate office. What we're seeing this year is that there is such a sense of urgency on AI, and there are these strategic pockets of, startups or smaller companies that have really the ability to accelerate that agenda. And so the CPO is really in the process of identifying those strategic pockets and evaluating what we call the make versus buy versus acquire equation. And even though it got slowed down a little bit, it's because the agenda shifted. Last year, the agenda was much broader. This year, the agenda is more specific. So I predict that M&A is going to increase year over year. What are your thoughts? I know that you're also in the middle of this, on both sides, both from a product point of view as well as from a startup point of view, and how you have some very unique perspectives here.
Yes. So from an investing point of view with Mighty Capital, we see a couple of things that are completely aligned with what you're seeing. Number one, there are companies that want to be market leader in AI, and the speed of innovation is incredible. Like, I have not seen that speed of innovation since the iPhone launch, basically the mobile era 15 something years ago. And so companies that want to be competitive are going to need to acquire some small, medium AI startups so that they can continue to keep up with the fast pace of innovation. They can move fast enough. So that's like a market leader move. The second thing is, and this may be a little farther out, but AI moves so quickly that even if you're not a market leader, right, even if you're a follower, you're going to need to keep up with AI really fast. And so acquiring some teams, right, maybe not businesses, but acquiring small teams to help you carve out time for or space for an AI strategy is going to become really important. And we're already seeing some of those signals in the Mighty Capital deal flow and portfolio. And then the third thing I will say is back to your point of value creation. For companies, like it's almost like you gain a lot of performance, right, in terms of your financial KPIs when you do some acquisitions. It drives your it drives like value for Wall Street. And then there's a point of diminishing returns where if you do too many M&As, you see diminishing returns. What we're seeing is those diminishing returns, they're especially true when you do what we call synergistic M&A, so driven by finance, because of the phenomenon I was explaining earlier where you have bigger teams, but they don't work together. So you end up wasting a lot of efficiency on trying to get the teams to work together. But when product drives those M&As, they're strategic M&A, they're not synergistics. And so what you see is the teams actually work together more effectively. And so you keep having productivity gains, and therefore, the Wall Street indicators keep getting better and better. So I do agree with you that the more product drives M&A, the higher the performance of the company, and it applies to market leaders and market followers alike. And the key is really having those product teams on the P&L, drive the M&A agenda, as opposed to letting the corp dev team do that. I have one more question for you, Renee, which is really nice for you and me. A third of our finalists this year are female CPOs, and that is a massive increase compared to last year. So what's the secret? Like, tell me what your take on this is.
I think that clearly women are starting to make their mark and in product. And we also, the other thing that I've noticed is a lot of the mix this year of the winners was much more across industries, not solely tech, but now going into retail, going into banking, going into insurance. Like we had a much bigger mix of industries represented in this year's finalists. I also think that had an impact, but clearly women in product are starting to make a difference. And I think what I am the most excited, if you think about the earlier trend that we identified, which was, the CPO and the role of the CPO is moving up in the C-suite and is now becoming the president and is clearly the bench for the CEO. This speaks volumes around the implication that we're seeing here, that not only are women making their way into the C-suite in product, but it also paves a very natural pipeline of female CEOs for the future that I'm actually very excited about. I also believe, not to over-rotate on AI, but AI is, obviously we're excited about the product opportunity AI, but it also is riddled with a lot of complex people issues. And when I say people issues, there are policy issues associated with AI. There are ethics issues associated with AI. There are privacy and security issues associated with the data. And research shows that women leaders actually are really, really well equipped to navigate not only the hard, tangible issues of, new product and new businesses, but the more softer, ethical, longer term foundational issues. So I think this just speaks wonders for the future. And this is going to be something that we track very closely moving forward.
Yes, for the future of women and the world. And right. What I love about your comment is, in the kind of prior generations, the key achievement for women was making it, break the glass ceiling, make it into the C-suite. But most of the time, they were in roles that weren't on CEO track, right? They were CHRO, or they were CMO, or Chief Legal Officer. That's not traditionally where CEOs come from. So to see women now in the C-suite on like seats that have the potential to get to the CEO job is super exciting. That's all I have. What about you, Renee? Anything else you want to share to close it off?
I think we've covered a lot of ground here, but I speak for myself, and when I say that I am absolutely excited for what the future holds for the role of the Chief Product Officer, and I can't wait to see next year's results.
We're going to have to move to like quarterly updates because this role is evolving so quickly. Something for us to think about.
Something to think about. Thank you, SC. It's been fun.
It's been great. Thanks.
This is SC Moatti again, founder and chair of Products That Count. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, Be sure to leave us a review on your favorite platform, including Spotify and Apple. And please check out our other resources at productsthatcount.org. They're designed to accelerate your product career and make product the most important function in business. Until soon.